Hey everybody, so this is another something that's been on my heart to share with you guys and get into. And before, months ago when this The Sound of Freedom movie came out, and I watched Jim Caviezel talk. I think it was the Sean Ryan show. It might have been something else. I'm sorry, I miss if I miss I made a mistake in the name of who Jim Caviezel was on, but it was somebody, a fairly large, very large YouTube channel, and the dude hosting it seemed like a really good dude. But Jim Caviezel, his energy was just off to me. Like, it didn't seem right. And he said some things that I was like, because he said he essentially, he'd sacrifice his life for these children, and which is a beautiful thing to say, but the tone didn't match his conviction, or, I didn't feel the conviction in his voice to what he was saying. Like, it felt like he was under some type of like, he was afraid. I don't know if it was like he felt like maybe he was told he had to say these things, but he knew he really didn't believe in it. That's kind of what I'm feeling is what I got. And I'd share that with you when I saw that interview. I'm scratching my head. And I like Jim Caviezel, and I think that the movie, they're trying to expose child trafficking and all that. And the way that they portrayed it was that they're trying to, or they didn't try, that they made the movie off of Tim Ballard, who is an actual child trafficking rescuer, and he's got a whole Operation Underground Railroad that's all about rescuing, sex victims. So there was a lot of evidence to suggest that this is real, and that this film is really trying to produce and perpetuate goodness for people whom are, enslaved in these child trafficking rings or sex trafficking rings. But again, I've always felt like there's something off with it. And then when I went into looked into Operation Underground Railroad's finances, like, all they do is receive funding from people. Like, they don't, their charity doesn't really even specify like what they're really doing. Like, it just didn't seem, stuff just didn't really seem right to me. Like, I didn't go too deep into it, but what I did see, it didn't seem all that right, or at least I thought if there was a better way to do these things. But anyway, so I was still happy to see a film that is exposing such evil, but it still didn't feel right. So anyway, it's been on my mind to take a look at some of the things that have happened since its release in July 4th, and one thing I definitely want to check on was how much proceeds it has made, and are those proceeds being used? Because, okay, so Jim Caviezel, the leading star of this, is saying that he would sacrifice his life to help these children, essentially, give his life to save these children. Then you should at least be donating a large amount of your profits that you're making from this film to go to helping, sex trafficking operations. If you're saying you're going to give your life, why wouldn't you give a large amount of your money when your life is much more valuable than money? And I think that the director of the film talked about doing something similar, not the exact same, but similar. So anyway, apparently the film has grossed over $242.58 million worldwide, and it is become the 10th highest grossing movie of 2023 so far. And I was just open in July 4th, so that's a lot of money it's made in a short amount of time. And I still have not found, I actually typed in, I was like, so that's how much money I'm trying to, then the next thing I was looking for was like, are the proceeds from the movie Sound of Freedom, I spelled of, being used to help fight sex trafficking? There's nothing immediately that came up to show that they are. I need to do further research to clarify that, but I did come across an article which goes into why there's so much controversy about this film, and it's really more than sad, to be honest. So I'm going to share with you guys a little bit of pieces of this. So the controversy heightened August 4th after reports surfaced that one of the thousands of people who contributed funds to making of the film was charged with being an accessory to child kidnapping. Now, I want to say, there's a possibility this individual is trying to make up for the wrong that he did. I could totally see somebody who was a former child kidnapper and got caught and did his time and got out of jail. Making amends would be like, yeah, I got a bunch of money, I did some fucked up shit. Why don't I use my money to help fight against the things that I used to help perpetuate since I've changed my ways? So I don't know if that's what this gentleman is doing, but that could be a possibility, or it could be somebody who was involved in child kidnapping and maybe still is involved in child kidnapping, but at the same time is still trying to fund a film that is supposedly against child kidnapping. But see, this is where it could get fucked up. This is, again, it does kind of tie into the nefarious narrative of them portraying an image of goodness when in actuality they're evil. So there's a possibility that these people could have made this film with the intent to appear to be good and to be fighting all these things, when in actuality the proceeds from this film could actually be used to perpetuate more nefarious activity. I'm not saying that's what's going on, but that does seem to be a similar pattern that these people use to fight against love, life, and humanity. But anyway, let's continue on. So now the film's screenwriter and director Alejandro Monteverde is calling the QAnon labels heartbreaking and not true in a mid-August full court press of the media. So that's another thing, I guess, that's adding to the controversy, is that they're associated with the QAnon group, which has got a lot of controversy, which I really don't know too much about. I've heard about it many times, but I haven't. When I don't see people speaking about solutions, I don't really pay much attention, because it's like, dude, there's so much controversy, there's so much conspiracy talk, that, like, there's so much of it. There's too much of it, in my opinion. We need solutions. That's what we need. In my opinion, we need more talk on solutions. So the whole QAnon thing to me was all about them just spreading more conspiracy shits, and when not providing any solutions. So I was like, I'm just not that interested. But so I don't know much about him. But anyway, let's continue on. So Sound of Freedom is based on the real story of Tim Ballard, a former U.S. Department for Homeland Security agent who conducts operations to rescue a young brother and sister from human trafficking. So yeah, that's what he does. And so all right, and then Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus in Mel Gibson's movie, Passion of the Christ. He's also been in numerous other movies that I really like too, to be honest. I also really like him as an actor. He had a very esoteric feeling to his acting. But I didn't feel that feeling when I watched that interview. I'm just being real, man, and I hope Jim's doing okay. But again, when you sign these contracts, if you don't fulfill them, I mean, it gets messy, very messy. So anyway, let me move on. According to a description of the movie from Angel Studios, the movie depicts Ballard's relentless pursuit of justice exposes the dark underbelly of the global crime, leaving an inedible impact on the fight for freedom. So the movie includes fictionalized versions of some real-life people, including Ballard and his wife, Catherine Ballard. According to Angel Studios, many of the movie's supporting characters are based on or inspired by real-life trafficking victims and perpetrators that Ballard reportedly encountered during his rescue missions. So Ballard had played the part of Sound of Freedom press tour, but he recently stepped away. This is what's very interesting. So you'd think after making this movie and it being so successful, that you would have even more, momentum and ammunition to fight against this, child sex trafficking fucking organization that they're talking about. That they have reportedly talked about it being worth $150 billion, and it's growing, and it's going to soon surpass fucking, the drug trade and the gun trade. So with all that money that I've showed you they just made, you'd think that would be just fucking, the common sense that a large amount of that money would be pooled into his organization, Operation Underground Freedom, and that they'd be able to rescue more children. But in actuality, it seems the exact opposite has happened. And not only that, Tim Ballard, the dude the movie's all about, has left the actual Operation Underground. That he founded. So this shit is crazy, and it's been confirmed by Today.com. I'm taking their word for it. I haven't dug too deep into it. So again, why is the Sound of Freedom sparking controversy? So all right, let's continue on. Some experts have challenged the factual accuracy of Sound of Freedom, saying it paints an inaccurate, sensationalized picture of child trafficking. So one of the reasons why the nefarious people might want to do that is, again, they feed off of fear, they feed off of anger, they feed off of lower vibrational energy. So by making a video talking about how there's all these fucking crazy shits going on all over the world, it's a $150 billion industry, that could easily create a lot of anger, a lot of pain, a lot of sadness, a lot of low vibrational energy in people. Okay, so that is a motive. Okay, looking into crime and things like that, it's important you have to identify a motive. Like, why would somebody do that crime? That helps them find evidence, that helps them find reasons, and through the reasons, they can find evidence to prosecute somebody and convict them of a crime through due process and the collection of evidence and all this. So anyway, let me move on though. I'm not saying that's what is happening, but that is a possibility. The film portrays children being snatched and kidnapped by strangers. While this can certainly happen, it's a myth that most traffickers target victims they don't know, according to Polaris, an organization that operates the U.S. National Human Trafficking Hotline. So I've never even heard of that hotline. I'm going to look into them because I don't know. I've heard of Polaris, but I haven't looked too deep into them. In fact, many survivors have been trafficked by romantic partners, including spouses, and by family members, including parents, Polaris notes. In a recent Rolling Stone interview, Aaron Albright, an attorney with extensive experience in this anti-trafficking field, called the movie's portrayals of trafficking sensational and said it perpetuates unhelpful and even harmful myths. So again, that kind of goes into what I was talking about, how them portraying it in such a bad way, it does help people. It makes people think that the world is more evil than it is, and which could just lower people's overall hope and ability to move on and have faith in the government. I could see how it could bring about more low vibrational energy. I still haven't even seen the film yet. I'm just going, so anyway, I'll move on. So
Albright argued, that when popular movies promote the narrative that trafficking involves forceful kidnapping and imprisonment, it makes it harder for people to grasp more complex trafficking cases, such as cases of coercive control or psychological manipulation. So, and I think a lot of times drug use is used, because when you get people hooked on serious drugs, bro, they will do fucked up things for them, and myself included. I know I've done fucked up things to get high. I have. When you get hooked on something and your cells don't have that, which they're used to getting all the time, your body goes into fucking horrible withdrawals. And if you're not in a good place inside your heart, which you're probably not if you're doing a bunch of drugs, and it just makes all that pain much more worse. I mean, you're fiending, man, and it can be fucking rough. And you will find yourself doing fucked up things that you never would have done if you had not been hooked on these drugs. So it is what it is. So when you have a case of really subtle coercion that's hard to prove, and the jury is expecting taken, you're not gonna get a conviction, and it makes it much harder. And it makes it much harder for survivors. Albright told Rolling Stone. In the recent blog post about Sound of Freedom, distributor Angel Studios acknowledged that the movie's portrayal of child trafficking does not necessarily reflect the way trafficking occurs in the real world. It is worth noting that the movie took creative liberties in depicting the different methods of child trafficking. See, that's weird too. If you're going to portray an actual event, why get creative and fictitious with it? Why not just depict it exactly how you've seen it? Because Tim Ballard is somebody who does it. I mean, that's what he does. So he should just depict exactly what he does. Don't try to create something to create sensationalism. That is I mean, if you're trying to, make a movie, if you are making a movie about factual things that are happening, make it as factual as possible. Especially with something as sensitive as child trafficking. I mean, that just makes good sense to me. Company also noted that in the beginning of the film, real security footage is shown depicting various kidnappings. While such incidents do occur in the realm of human trafficking, it's important to recognize that they do not represent the majority. So anyway, there's still more stuff on QAnon. I don't think I'm going to read much more of this, but I am going to look. Okay, let's see what Jim Caviezel, what does he believe? Caviezel did not respond to Today.com's multiple requests for comment as of August 14th. So, I mean, that says something right there, bro. Like, if you ain't got nothing to hide, there's no reason to speak, especially if you're, I mean, it's kind of silly, bro. Like, why wouldn't you respond? That tells me that he's trying to hide something, which I don't like, which also correlates to why I felt a weird feeling when I saw that interview months ago. Anyway, so I hope I can see what they're doing with the proceeds, because if they're not doing nothing good with it, then it is a bunch of baloney, man. And it's really sad, too, that they would create this situation. And then it's like, well, then what's the real deal? Like, how bad is this situation? I know in Oregon, I've been to places where there is literally whole poster boards full of missing children. So I know there is a huge issue with missing and kidnapped children. We know what the Hollywoods have done. David Nino Rodriguez years ago talked about how he had celebrities come to him, talking to him how children are looked at as more valuable than gold in that industry. So I know that there is some factuality to that movie. Just how much so is still open to investigation and thus conclusion. But all right, anyway, I love you guys. Y'all take care. Bye.